people love demons. You'd be hard-pressed to find a fantasy setting that doesn't include demons of some sort, and that's partially because they're pretty convenient from a writing perspective. They're understood to be inherently evil, so you don't need to put in the legwork to explain why a demon does bad things or why it's morally justified for your hero to rip and tear through the legions of hell. Just look at Dungeons & Dragons. Formerly evil races like orcs and drow have been given way more complexity over the years, but demons are still treated as straight-up villains. Despite that, some pieces of media have tried to explore demons with a bit of moral nuance, which is what we see in Mortal Kombat with Ashrah and Sareena. Designing a character who looks demonic without looking evil is a serious challenge, so how successful were MK's artists? That's what I'm here to answer. Good morrow everyone, Silvershire here, and welcome back to Pellet Swap, where I'm going to discuss all 12 Ashrah and Sareena costumes and then rank them from worst to best. But first, who are Ashrah and Sareena? Ashrah and Sareena once served the dark sorcerer Quan Chi as part of the Brotherhood of Shadows, but each had a moment that made her go,
"Are we the baddies?" and
turn against him. For Ashrah, it was being sentenced to death after questioning one of Quan Chi's orders, and for Sareena, it was meeting an Earthrealmer named Sub-Zero who showed her mercy even after she tried to kill him. Ashrah escaped her execution and wandered the Netherrealm, hoping to find some way to atone for her past sins. Coincidentally, she stumbled upon a magical holy sword called Datusha. By using it to slay evil creatures such as Megan Fox, it would purify her soul, or so it claimed. In truth, Datusha was a cursed blade with a craving for that sweet, sweet vampire blood. Sareena, meanwhile, fled the Netherrealm and sought out Sub-Zero, who offered her sanctuary among his ninja clan, the Lin Kuei, for like 5 minutes before Quan Chi brainwashed her and turned her evil again. In the rebooted timeline created by MK1, Ashrah's backstory is mostly unchanged, but Sareena seemingly never met Sub-Zero, instead being freed from Quan Chi's influence by Ashrah. Also, now Ashrah has a lizard boyfriend. I was planning to start with Ashrah because I have more to say about her, but Sareena was the first demon to appear, making her non-playable debut in everyone's favorite MK game, Mythology Sub-Zero.
What?!
She's wearing a skimpy black leather getup that's pretty standard for a late 90s fantasy villainess. The more interesting parts of her design are the tattoos, which designate her as a Brotherhood of Shadows member, and the white streak in her hair, which sets her apart from the other demons. My biggest issue with Sareena, and with Ashrah as we'll get to, is that they don't look anything like demons. There are reasons for that in the lore, but it's still such a boring design choice. Like, they couldn't even slap some horns on there? That's the bare minimum for a demon. Ashrah's debut appearance from MK Deception is pretty simple, consisting of white and gold robes with a wide-brimmed straw shade. The general term for this headwear is a kasa, which would also describe Raiden's hat. But specifically, Ashrah's is reminiscent of an ichimegasa, which was commonly worn by Japanese noblewomen in the 8th through 12th centuries. The veil on an ichimegasa generally goes all the way around, or at least most of the way, but Ashrah's is limited to the back of her head, leaving her face unobscured. Put a pin in that, it'll come up again later. The kanji on her hat means demon, and the kanji on her robe are kind of difficult to make out, but I think they mean monster hunter, which would definitely be applicable to Ashrah. Back in the day, Ashrah was sometimes called the female Raiden, much like Frost was the female Sub-Zero. I don't think that's entirely fair, but I do see where the comparison comes from, because they have similar silhouettes and color schemes. One way to potentially set her apart would have been to base her design on a culture other than Japan, which already has a lot of representation in Mortal Kombat. Her name is speculated to come either from Arabic or Sanskrit, so it would have been neat to see her design pull from Middle Eastern or Southeast Asian aesthetics. Moving beyond her outfit, the lack of demonic features is even more disappointing here than it was for Sareena, because a seemingly evil monster wearing this holy white and gold clothing could have been a really compelling contrast. Her alternate costume removes her hat and gives her a more form-fitting outfit. It doesn't look bad, but it's kind of generic. I do like the translucent sleeves, and I think it would have been interesting to use that material more. Maybe they could have given her a matching skirt and a long scarf that could flow in the breeze to give her this ethereal, angelic quality. Sareena returned as an NPC in Deception, and then made her playable debut on the Game Boy of all things, but I'm gonna skip ahead to Armageddon, because it's higher fidelity and brings back her costume from those games anyway. Her default is close to her Mythology's design, but now with more of her midriff exposed and a bunch of additional red accents. While that does break up the design more, I sort of miss the stark contrast of her mostly monochromatic palette from Mythology's. Also, it would have been neat if she had some sort of visual connection to the Lin Kuei. Sareena's alternate costume is way too similar to her default. All it does is shorten her boots, remove the straps across her chest, and slightly shift the color palette. This was a missed opportunity to do literally anything else with the character. After 17 years of being relegated to cameos, Ashrah and Sareena returned in MK1. This game had the crazy idea to make the demons look demonic. They have these jagged hairlines to leave room for horns, although Ashrah's horns have disappeared as part of her absolution. They're also covered in scar-like markings, with Sareena's taking the place of her old tattoos. Lastly, their eyes have black sclera, which is really cool and unsettling. I still think the demon angle could have been pushed further, especially for Sareena, but this is a major improvement that makes their designs way more memorable. So with the general overview out of the way, let's get to their costumes. This time around, Ashrah leans more into fantasy aesthetics. Between the additional pieces of armor and the overall triangular shaped language of her design, she looks more dangerous and aggressive. A lot of her clothing bears a pattern reminiscent of feathers, which makes sense because she can grow a pair of glowing angel wings in this game. I mostly prefer this to her classic look, but I do miss the hat. Now that she actually has some demonic features, it would have been neat if she wore an Ichimegasa with a full veil as a way of hiding her face and trying to pass for human, much like Melina in Deception. Her Union of Light costume is more ornate than her default. The feather-like pattern has been replaced by ordinary stripes, but to compensate, she has a subtle leaf motif in a few places. Maybe this version of Ashrah has begun training with the Shaolin monks, as shown in her ending, and has thus become more in tune with nature. Her hat is back, now with a protruding section in the center that makes it look even more like a traditional Ichimegasa. All in all, this is a beautiful design. I do wish she still had dark hair for stronger contrast, but that's a minor nitpick. Her Order of Darkness costume is underwhelming. Like, the outfit is fine, but it doesn't live up to the concept of an evil, alternate dimension Ashrah. It's pretty much just regular Ashrah, except some of her armor is black. She has a few edgy alternate palettes that make her seem more evil, but I can't really give her credit for that because everyone has those. Her festival disguise is just her default with some accessories thrown on top, including a wide-brimmed hat to hide her face. While it's disappointing that she doesn't get an entirely new outfit, I do think this looks nice. I prefer more cohesive color palettes like Necros Soiree, which make it seem like she chose to wear this to the festival instead of just throwing together a quick disguise like she did in story mode. Lastly, her Age of Conan costume is a cosplay of Valeria from the 1982 Conan the Barbarian movie. I'm not usually a fan of these outfits that are taken straight from another piece of media, but this doubles as just a Valkyrie costume for Ashrah. It's very unlike any of her other designs, but it feels fitting, especially given her glowy angel wings. My main issue with this costume is its lack of color. In the movie, Valeria's armor is super shiny and sparkly, which makes up for the desaturated palette, but that's not the case in-game. Luckily, she has some more vibrant alternate colors, my favorite being Contrite Zambulin? Zambao? Let's go with Contrite Zamboni. Sareena is only an assist in MK1, so she doesn't have nearly as many costumes. Her default is a modernization of her classic look, replacing the shiny black leather with more grounded materials. She has red sashes wrapped around her torso, as well as tight belts tying these metal blades down to her collar. None of it is literally restricting her, but it calls to mind the idea of suppression, which is fitting both for someone who has a literal inner demon, and for someone who has essentially been enslaved by Quan Chi. MK1 also gives Sareena the ability to shift into a fully demonic form. It's a pretty generic demon design, but I'm still happy it's here. Out of all Sareena's costumes, this one definitely does the most to characterize her. Her only alternate costume is her holiday skin, which is a cute blend of Christmas attire and her usual goth aesthetic. I love that the skull on her belt has a tiny Santa hat. This costume is obviously trying to be silly, but I appreciate that it's still fashionable. If you got rid of the obvious Christmas accessories, it would work as a regular Sareena design. It suffers from the same problem as a lot of Christmas skins, which is that I would only want to use it 1 month out of the year. But other than that, I have nothing negative to say about it. Now that we've gone over every Ashrah and Sareena costume, let's get to the rankings. From worst to best for Ashrah, we have Deception Ult, Deception, Order of Darkness, Age of Conan, Festival Disguise, MK1, and Union of Light. For Sareena, we have Armageddon Ult, Armageddon, Mythologies, MK1, and Holiday. That concludes my ranking of Ashrah and Sareena, but if you're fiending for some more character design analysis, you can check out my palette swap playlist. So let me know what you think of Ashrah and Sareena's costumes, and until next time, I bid thee farewell.